I want to ask, before we get to other topics, about Pete Hegseth. Thanks in large part to all the questions that senators posed to him about his personal behavior during his Senate confirmation hearing, we didn't get a lot of information about how he would lead the Defense Department through the myriad of real threats that our country and our military face. Do you think he's up to it?
Well, we're going to find out one way or the other, because I do think, absent some dramatic development we don't know about, he will be confirmed tonight. I think the way the confirmation hearing was conducted left it entirely open to the Democrats to try and make the case against Hegseth on the basis of competence, and they didn't do it. You know, if you play the game correctly on the personal frailty point, you need to bring witnesses forward who are going to put their names on testimony or affidavit or something like that, because I do think the anonymous accusation ultimately is going to fail in an age when a lot of anonymous accusations are wrong. But while they were talking about drinking and womanizing, there was really very little question about, well, what is your view on an appropriate structure for the nuclear force and the division among the legs of the triad? And what are you going to do in a tripolar nuclear world where China joins Russia and the U.S.? So we just don't know what he knows or doesn't know, but we're going to find out one way or another, I think, pretty soon.
In the meantime, it appears that Vladimir Putin has got the memo that flattery gets you far. He gave an interview a short time ago saying the 2020 election was stolen from Trump, and that President Trump is smart and pragmatic, and he looks forward to working with him.
Well, I think Putin learned how to flatter Trump back early in the first term. He wasn't a KGB agent trained in how to read other people for nothing. I do think he thinks Trump is an easy mark and that he believes he knows how to play him. I am surprised it's taken this long, really, for Putin to be available for a meeting with Trump. As your clip there showed, Trump's ready for a meeting with Putin.
Right.
He also can't wait to have a meeting with Xi Jinping. So I would think those are coming fairly soon. Probably Putin first, because Ukraine really is on the front burner at this point.
Right. He had promised during the election to end the war on day one. This is something clearly a high priority of his, and meeting with Putin is the only way to make that happen. I want to ask you about something else that President Trump said today. He said that you and Dr. Anthony Fauci, who got his Secret Service protection cut off last night, that you both have made a lot of money and you can pay for your own protection. Take a listen.
Would you feel partially responsible if something were to happen to, say, Dr. Fauci or John Bolton?
No. You know, they all made a lot of money. They can hire their own security, too. All the people you're talking about, they can go out. I can give them some good numbers of very good security people. They can hire their own security. They all made a lot of money. Fauci made a lot of money. They all did. So if they, you know, felt that strongly, I think that certainly I would not take responsibility.
Dr. Fauci has hired his own protection. Are you going to do the same?
Well, I'm not going to get into specifics, but you know, I think this kind of attitude by Trump shows that what his real motivation was entirely political. This is part of the retribution campaign. He also took the State Department's protection for former Secretary Mike Pompeo away. The issue, I can't speak to Dr. Fauci's circumstances, but the issue for myself, for Pompeo, and for a number of other former officials is that we are caught up in the Iranian effort to get their revenge for the elimination of Qasem Soleimani. And the threat stream is what induced President Biden back in late 2021 to order that I receive protection again. Had nothing to do with my political views or how much money I was making, which may be a new definition of what Donald Trump thinks is a lot of money. But it was ordered on the basis that the reason the Iranians were threatening to, and not just threatening, trying to hire hitmen to assassinate me, was the carrying out of my official responsibilities as National Security Advisor. So I don't think anybody's entitled to anything, but it's certainly very reasonable for the government to protect people who have operated on behalf of the government against brutal terrorist foreign regimes like Iran's.
Thanks. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.